Okay, so welcome back. I know you're probably wondering, like, what the heck is the Canon M6 Mark One doing on this video when the title said this was about the $500 XT3? Well, needless to say, the way I ended up with the Fuji XT3 was I was actually doing a lot of outdoor stuff, landscape stuff with this camera. By the way, I added the viewfinder, as well as some street photography type stuff. And I kind of ran into the issue of the elements. So, starts raining and now we're getting into snow. The moisture, this is not weather sealed. So my 22 millimeter is not sealed. The body's not sealed. And of course, I was using the RX7 100 for the same purpose during the summertime. Used it for a lot of street stuff. I also used that RX7 for some of the outdoor stuff. But same thing, I got to keep a baggie with me because if it starts raining, I have to basically hide it from the moisture. So what I ended up doing is I started bringing along this camera. This is the A7 III with a Sigma, I believe this is a 45 millimeter 2.8 lens. And I mean, great camera. It is weather resistant, the lens and the camera body, but you'll notice it is a lot larger than either one of these cameras. And when I say these, I mean also the camera I'm filming on, which is even smaller than this camera. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to get something that would basically be smaller, lighter than this. I'm not going to be too extreme. I don't have to go too small. This is about as small as I wanted to get. But if it went a little bit smaller, as long as it was comfortable, I'd be okay. Like I said, I love the RX 100. But I also wanted it to be able to withstand the elements. And lo and behold, this camera came along. Now, keep in mind, this is the Fuji XT3. I know a little bit about the XT3 because when I bought the A7 III that I actually showed you however many years ago, this was the camera that I had in the running. And the reason why I didn't actually buy it was because the minimal amount of time I used it, I wasn't a huge fan of the dials. It just didn't come natural to me. I didn't realize there was a big difference between not having the PASM dial versus everything being on a dial, like the ISO, the shutter speed. But once again, did a little research, figured out, okay, that's why that didn't necessarily work for me then. But otherwise, one of the things I actually liked about this camera was I did like the colors, but like the previous Canon I showed you, I've been using Fujifilm simulated colors. They're not the same as what you get on this. And they appeared to be working out okay. Well, whenever I bought this camera, I was looking for something that was smaller than the full frame and something that was weather resistant. So I found this camera. This body shows up on Adorama. It was about $520. No lens, of course, and it was listed as moderate. Now, I think the reason why I said moderate was, there's a couple of nicks on it. You could see I've actually bought some paint to try to touch up some of these and clean it up a little bit. I'll move this around. But, for the most part, when I got it, it didn't really seem like it was in bad condition. I did check the X or the EX IFM file for shutter counts, and I got like 144, which I don't think that's necessarily accurate, or maybe it was. Maybe they just never really used the manual shutter very much. Frankly, I don't even know if it even tracks the manual and the electronic. I would assume it just tracks the manual, but it seemed like it was pretty low, and it was in good enough condition. Didn't have any lenses, so I actually picked up the weather resistant 28 millimeter, actually, sorry, 27 millimeter 2.8 lens, which is a slightly different focal length than what I was actually used to in this pancake lens here. But I took this out and did some shooting, downtown, and it appears to be working fine for me. Actually, I've gotten used to it. It didn't really feel like it was that foreign. Frankly, I didn't care to use the A7 for that type of walk around shooting because I actually thought it was a little bit too tight. So this works out fine for me. Autofocus is a tad loud, but once again, I'm using it for photography. So far, I've used it, really just downtown shooting and, around the house, those types of things, and it appears to do well. Pretty happy with it, but I was just amazed at the amount of camera you can get for $500. Now, one of the things I will tell you is the other camera that was kind of in the running with this camera was the EM5 Mark 1 and the Mark 2. One's a way cheaper camera than this. I mean, they were about $200. And then the twos, they were $200 to $300. But to me, I'd rather just stretch a little bit more and get this one. Yes, this is larger. But when you start looking at how much more capable this camera is, plus I get a little bit larger sensor. But then if you look at the video side, which I'll probably put up an example and show you kind of what that looks like, the video footage in this camera, one of the reasons why it was actually in the running with my A7 III is because the video chops are pretty amazing. Frankly, it actually does more on the video side than the A7 III does. But Sony, in my opinion, out of all the cameras I've had so far, to include the one I'm filming on, there are some things that just don't come close. I personally will tell you by far the autofocus on this camera in video, and I would even say in stills, is not as good as the Sony. Colors are subjective. I actually like Sony colors. I don't know if anybody's ever even said that, but I think they look fine. But what I do like about this camera as a photographer is once I realized, the difference of configuring all the dials and, the aperture ring, which I've got lenses with aperture ring, so I've used that type of stuff before, but just getting used to it, I really started to love. It's become second nature just being able to shoot with this camera. I did add the cover for the port here, and I added, of course, the Peak Design anchors, as well as the button. The button I hated when I first got this because it was really recessed, but otherwise it was pretty great. One of the things I also liked about this camera, and one of the reasons why I actually wanted this camera and also the EM5, was the flip up, or the tilt screen. And then the idea that, you could also do this, so you can actually shoot its landscape if you want. And yeah, didn't really want a fully articulating screen. Really, there's another camera that I had in the running, but I kind of eliminated because I didn't want the articulating screen, and that was the Canon RP. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with this combo so far. I'll probably do an update on this the more I shoot with it. Really digging the lens. I actually got really lucky on the lens. I had actually bought a TT Artisan version of this, and it did not focus at all. So I went to my camera shop, Mike's Camera here in Colorado Springs, and had them check this body. Actually, I went to CameraWorks for that. And then I went over to Mike's, and Mike's just actually happened to have this lens in stock, which this lens is kind of hard to get a hold of right now. But I was able to get it MSRP. So this is about a $399 lens. Once again, $500 body. All in, I'm under $1,000. Been pretty happy with it. I think between this camera, that camera, I am good for the outdoor stuff. If anything, I'll probably keep this one, and I'll keep the RX 100 with me at all times. And then that way I can just, in the elements, just keep this one out and shoot with it. In addition to that, I do have, give me 1 second, my U-Rig mirror, which is right here. So in the event that I do want to film myself and I want to be able to frame, I could always throw this on there, which is actually something I'm probably going to do right now just to kind of show you the video footage. So if you just bear with me for a moment, I'll rig this up really, really quick. I'll just use the audio from the RX 100 just to make it a little easier, and then I'll sync all of this in post. There for my autofocus. Ooh, man, I don't want that to be too blown out. Let me go ahead and adjust this. There we go. Yeah, so it's okay. See, my wall's a little overexposed there. But yeah, this is the image I'm getting just straight out of camera. Eternal profile. Haven't really tweaked any of the colors or anything, but no, it looks okay. Like I said, recording the sound from the RX 100, which I can show you what that looks like right there. Sorry that the window's blown out. But yeah, and then as throughout this video, of course, I put up some of the videos of what the stills look like coming from this camera. But yeah, overall, I think it's a pretty good deal. Like I said, the more I use it, I'll update. But feel free. Once again, not really replacing cameras per se, because I'm not necessarily getting rid of any of the cameras. But I'm using this camera as the primary when I'm outside, shooting. So I don't have to worry about it. Once again, Got any questions, feel free, click like, subscribe, and that's it. Agent Fit signing out.